What's this sign say, Ida?
Oh, just something about a movie-making competition for kids.
What's a competition, Ida?
Well, you know, that's where everyone makes a movie scene. Then they send it in, and the one who's the winner gets a prize, and that's a contest.
Are you going to make a movie, Ida?
I might. I might.
Are you making your movie now, Ida?
Come on, Cookie.
Can I be in your movie, Ida?
Welcome, Zoe, to the Degrassi Kid podcast. How are you feeling about reflecting on Degrassi today? Do you feel ready?
Oh my God, I'm ready, Jocelyn. I mean, I feel like I'm in very good hands, and I'm excited to go wherever you're going to take this.
I'm excited. I'm going to ask you about Degrassi, but I'm also going to teach you a little bit about Degrassi because I'm aware that I'm an adult who studied the original Degrassi, but you were the kid who lived it. So there might have been things that happened that you don't even know were happening at the time.
Seriously, you have some advantage on me, I think.
I'll take care of you. We got this. Before we get started in talking, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to who Zoe is. Zoe is so much the first Degrassi kid that it wasn't even called Degrassi at the time. At the time, it was just a one standalone short film called Ida Makes a Movie that slowly became Degrassi. And now you've grown up to become an activist, a gender studies professor, and you're going to do your best to reflect on Degrassi and tell us what you can remember, which I'm excited about. We also have a lot of Degrassi fan questions that came in, but I want to give one particular shout out to a fan named Mike who lives in Alberta. He is a huge fan of the kids at Degrassi Street. And one of the best parts about kind of loving every era of the show is that I get to connect with those fans who specifically love one moment in Degrassi's history. And he wrote in to say, thank you for doing this. He loved hearing about you in the interview we did with Nancy. And this is what he said. I want to say thank you, Zoe. I was born in Toronto in the late 70s. I hold Ida, Noel, Cookie, and Irene so close to my heart. Those are the types of kids I grew up with on my street when we played together. It makes such a huge impact to see your childhood memorialized forever on screen. So thank you for everything you've done in the Degrassi universe. Your impact is bigger than you might realize. I know we're really hyping you up, aren't we?
Whoa. And Mike, thank you so much. It sounds like we probably have a lot of notes to compare about growing up in Toronto in the late 70s. So I'm so touched.
Okay, great. I love this. First, we're going to ask you to paint a picture for us and take us back in time. Late 70s, early 80s. What was a young Zoe Newman like as a kid?
So late 70s, I had only really recently moved to Toronto in 1978 with my mom and my two older brothers. And I was already pretty sure that I was going to be a movie star. Like we're talking, 1940s Hollywood starlet. That was my obsession already.
I love it.
I think I was, fairly like I was also the youngest of my siblings and also of my cousins. And so I was like treated like the little pet and often like encouraged to perform. So I was a little bit of a handful, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We were living not that far from Degrassi Street. We were living in the Bain Co-op. So like around Riverdale Park. I mean, probably now, whatever it would be called Leslieville, because that, that ridiculous real estate category has like expanded. Yeah, I was going to École Publique Gabriel Roy, which is like a public French school, not an immersion thing. Anyway, it was like it was also in the East End. So yeah, I guess I was a bit of an East End kid. That gives you maybe some sense.
Insight. Yes, I love that you believed you're going to be a movie star. And then I mean, you're Ida, you're making a movie. How perfect is that? How old were you when you were officially started Degrassi?
I believe I was 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible that you moved in 1978 because the filming, I mean, was then like a year or a couple months later. So I feel like it was fate. The universe wanted you to get your dream, I think. A lot of us in the Degrassi fandom have read this memoir called The Mother of All Degrassi by Linda Schuyler. And she described you as bright, cute, spunky, and perfect for the role of Ida Lucas. Do you have any memories from those early days of auditioning or getting in touch with the Degrassi realm?
I mean, first of all, thank you, Linda. That is so sweet. I will take that description of myself as opposed to like bratty and entitled or whatever story I might tell about myself. I totally remember. So we were living in the Bain Co-op with And my stepfather was friends with this person named Amy Jo Cooper. They'd been friends for a while. And Amy Jo, I guess, was at the time adapting the children's book into a script for Ida Makes a Movie, and knew about me, like whatever, we were family friends, and knew about me and was like, hey, there's this audition happening for somebody around Zoe's age. I don't know if Amy Jo knew that about my starlet plans. Anyway, so I remember going to this like very community low-key thing in a church basement, I think. I don't really remember any of the details of the audition, but yeah, there you go.
That's incredible. I know it's crazy to think about now, because now kids have like agents and it's just like they're all fighting for the role, but it's just like, hey, I have this, there's this kid I know who would be great for this. It's so cool how organic it was back in the day.
It really was. Yeah.
Then, of course, you get cast as Ida, and now they start filming Ida Makes a Movie, which I have to reiterate to our listeners. It was not the beginning of Degrassi. It truly was just, hey, we're making a short film. Linda wanted to make one. And then Ida Makes a Movie is what was born. Do you remember what it was like when you finally got your moment in front of the camera? Do you have memories of that?
I mean, it's kind of hilarious that in the movie, Ida is a filmmaker, right? Because like, whatever, that wasn't necessarily, my wish was to be on the other side of the camera. But yeah, I don't really remember that much about like the first moment. I remember the kind of general feeling of being on set and like just how laid back it was, and how much like it was not like, I think partly we weren't handled like talent. We were kids, and like that was also a reflection on like Linda's background. And yeah, it sort of felt like kids hanging out. I mean, that said, I feel like I remember having a bit of an inflated sense of myself. And so like, I was special. Although Dawn, who played Cookie, and I definitely were buddies on the set. I mean, she came from much more of a like typically showbiz background, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, she was in like The Littlest Hobo and stuff, and appeared in a bunch of plays and stuff like that. Yeah.
She actually had more showbiz cred than I did.
So I was gonna ask, did you act in anything else besides Degrassi? Even like plays at school or anything like that?
Well, I was Little Red Riding Hood in my grade 2 play. Yeah. Yes, I
You're
was.
a star. Oh my gosh.
I remember very clearly we'd painted like whatever, all the students had like painted the backdrop, a big like paper backdrop. And during the play that we put on for our parents, the backdrop fell down and everybody else was like laughing. And I was like, guys, the show must go on. You do not like break character. Anyway.
As a second grader.
That was a second. Yeah. So that was one of my big turns before Ida Makes a Movie. No, I hadn't really done anything else.
That's incredible. Degrassi fans are going to specifically love that story, because then later Ida directs the school play and everyone else is trying to have fun with it because it's an elementary school play. And she's like, we need to get our timing correct. You need to study your lines. So it sounds like you really were cast perfectly for Ida Lucas.
Yeah. I may have borrowed a little bit from my personality.
I love it so much. One of the things that the Degrassi fan community knows about Degrassi Junior High is that they had a really big focus on acting workshops. They would have all the kids to come together, practice, they'd get into their characters. Do you remember anything when it came to learning about acting on the kids at Degrassi Street? Any notes, direction, or maybe even classes?
God, I really don't. I really, really don't. I mean,
you were just perfect.
I mean, that you said it, not me. I do like have this vague sense of like other hanging out in a church basement kinds of things. So we may have done some of like, yeah, I don't remember anything specifically. I can't, or even, I mean, whatever. Kit obviously was like a very major presence and figure in everything to do with my experience of kids at Degrassi Street. But I feel like there was a real kind of emphasis on naturalism.
I love that. And you can see it in the Ida Makes a Movie because it's one of my favorite things because it really is the blueprint of where Degrassi started. And there's specifically a scene where Ida's reading her letter that she won this contest. And in the scene, you slowly put the letter up right in front of your face. And through half the scene, we can't even see you. And it's just, I think it's such a testament to how like homegrown it was. Because like Linda had never really made a show before. Kid had never really, they did commercials and stuff. But it was just like collectively such just like a young start of Degrassi. So I love that those moments weren't fine-tuned and polished and like, hey, make sure you keep this down. It just truly reflects what the kids would really be like. If she's reading a letter, she's going to be doing it like this. So I do love that.
Oh.
A story that Mike had included in his note was that a few years ago, he had run into Genevieve Applebottom, who played Liz, who was one of your best friends on Degrassi. And he mentioned that she had said you helped her get her audition for Degrassi. Do you remember doing that or any other additions to add to that story?
Totally. So Genevieve Appleton is, if I recall, is her name. I mean, that is like I totally remember it. We were good friends at Gabrielle Roy, and we were friends in high school. I think at the time, like this was, like 1983, 84. I feel like Linda and Kit were like, we want to bring in some more older kids. And we're just asking cast if we had friends. And yeah, I brought Genevieve in and she ended up being Liz in Liz Sits the Schlegels.
That's so cool. And then you guys got to be friends on the show. So that's even cuter. Oh, okay. I love that. I see you were remembering way more than I would have pegged you to remember. This is great.
I mean, you're asking good questions.
Thank you. You said that, not me. For more backstory for our listeners, you appeared on Degrassi between 1979 and 1985, and you appeared in 10 episodes. In those episodes, you worked with so many people on the show: Don Harrison, Nancy Lamb, Peter Duckworth Pilkington III, one of my favorite names. And one of the things that's really different, I need to emphasize for our listeners, is that it wasn't a whole season. You didn't film 26 episodes at once. You came back year after year. And I want to know that feeling of you've done the first one, now it's the next summer and you're doing it again. It's the next summer and you're doing it again. What did it feel like to come back to that set? Did it kind of feel like summer camp in any kind of way?
Oh, I mean, like there are definitely, I didn't even remember that it was 10 episodes or exactly what the time frame was, but I feel like I can remember at least one time that it interfered with or was like overlapped with my school schedule. Yeah, it's funny that's a bit of a blur for me. And I'm trying to remember like what it, because I don't think we really hung out, like cast members really hung out between episodes. We for sure didn't have all the ways to be in touch that you would now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that must have been something to like get back together, like every year or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't remember.
That's okay. That is so cute. The Degrassi Junior High kids, now they stayed together for like a full year. But what they did pre-cell phones, of course, is they actually made a yearbook and they put their pictures in it and they put like their nicknames and then they all put their phone numbers in it, which is so cute. But again, they were together like for like 9 months of the year. So much bigger difference of experiences. Today, whenever they make shows like Degrassi, there are craft services, there's a wardrobe department, there's a hair and makeup team. Can you paint a picture for us of what it was like to film an episode of The Kids of Degrassi Street? Was it that glamorous?
I mean, glamorous. It was very low key, I would say. Like I definitely remember that we wore our own clothes. And that was like, I think maybe very smartly and genuinely, like it was presented to us as a way to like be accurate and truly representative. I guess it was also a good way to like do a thing on a small budget.
Yeah.
So yeah, no hair and makeup that I can recall. I feel like there was I definitely remember continuity. I definitely remember that being a thing that was, kind of something that got drilled into us. Maybe as we got a little bit more familiar with being on set and there being a person, God, I can't remember their name now, but there being a person who would like come up just before the camera started rolling to say, actually, your hair was tucked behind your ear or like whatever it was, or you didn't have that smudge on your face.
Cute.
Yeah, it was very cute. I'm trying to like, I have a distinct memory from a scene when I think it was probably in Ida Makes a Movie when we had to like cook hot dogs and then eat them over and over again in a scene. But at this moment, that's kind of blurring for me into like what we had to eat on set.
Yes.
But I don't think that it wasn't actually, they didn't actually make us eat the cold hot dogs left over.
That's incredible.
Just to be clear.
I love that. I also have, because Degrassi is such a passion of mine, anytime someone has a Degrassi fact, I need to tell them the real fact. It was Irene Moves In, where you and Irene are getting into a fight and your mom makes you have a sleepover and then your brother has to take care of you and he's cooking hot dogs. I just like have to fill in the gaps.
Thank you well, you're helping to like knit together my memories better.
I love that. Oh, shoot. Oh, I was going to say that I think that's also a testament to also Linda and Kit and the people on set growing up, because, you know, having those moments of having someone with continuity, that didn't really exist when you watch Ida Makes a Movie. Again, with that letter, like someone now would have said, put the letter down. And I think that really goes to show it's also them learning how to make a TV show, not just the kids learning how to be actors, but them coming to work every day and saying, okay, how can we make the next one better? Which I think is so cute.
Well, and that's the thing, right? When you're 9 years old and you're like relatively new to doing this kind of thing, it didn't occur to me that they were new to it as well.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, so I recently got to chat with Phil Earnshaw, who's the cinematographer for all of the ones I think I was in. And he was like confessing kind of how young and green he was at the time.
Wow, that is so cool. Phil actually went on, he was a cinematographer on every iteration right up until the very last episode, the whole thing. Isn't that crazy?
That is remarkable.
Nuts.
He is such a lovely guy. Yeah.
I know. I'll have to, I got to obviously meet him at Linda's too. And one of my other dreams is to ask him about, you know, the difference of Ida Makes a Movie to the finale of Next Class. Like what would you have told young Phil to get through that first episode?
Oh my God.
One of the things that also makes the kids at Degrassi Street so special is that it was really one of the first shows, especially in Canada, to actually put young kids on TV and tell their stories. Up until that point, it's mostly just like preschool shows like Sesame Street. I'm curious, do you think the kids at Degrassi Street really reflected what it was like to be a kid back then?
I think that was like going back to my dreams of like ball gowns and Vivian Lee and whoever else. I think that might have been like a bit of a come down for me as like a 9 or 10-year-old, which was like how much this was kind of naturalistic and about like everyday experiences. I mean, watching it subsequently, I so appreciate that this is these are stories about like working class kids and like quote unquote inner city kids. And also, but like not told in a way that's like sensationalistic or So I think it was pretty close.
I love that.
I'm just remembering that my grandmother, my bubby, used to call them my plays. That and somehow that really does capture it for me in some way, that it was like very, that doesn't necessarily convey the way in which it was like. They were character studies, I guess.
Yeah.
Trying to say.
Oh, that is cute. I really appreciate you taking what you can out of your memory to bring a story that resonates with this, because it's cool watching you like remember something that's happened so long ago in your life. So it's very, very cool. Do you remember the kind of shows you were watching when you were growing up, like when you were working on the kids at Degrassi Street?
I mean, my parents were hippies, so we really barely had a TV, except that I always like somehow got somebody else's television, because I was obsessed with like pop culture and fitting in. So, I mean, when I was littler, I definitely watched things like, oh my God, what's this? Friendly Giant. And then The Monkees is a show that comes to mind. Hey, Hey, We're the Monkees, which is like this sort of the era of like Brady Bunch and whatever that other show about the like traveling band family.
Oh, shoot, it's gonna bug me that I can't remember.
I want to say Peacock. Somehow I want to say Peacock.
I can't remember, but those are good ones. Those are good ones.
Yeah.
I love that. How long has it been since you've actually seen like Ida Makes a Movie or the kids at Degrassi Street?
It's probably been a few years. I do feel like maybe because of all of the stuff that happened with the red carpet and the Walk of Fame, I may have gone back like in the fall and watched one of them. But it's been quite a while. I haven't watched a whole episode in quite a while.
Wow. Do you remember what it felt like to go back and even reconnect with that even so briefly?
It feels a little bit embarrassing, a tiny bit cringy.
No way.
I will admit. Yeah.
That's so funny. It's a difference when it's you. Like
Yeah.
I watch Degrassi from start to finish every single year. Like I started Ida Makes a Movie right till the end. So it's very fresh in my brain and I appreciate it so much. But I do think about times that I've appeared in things or like old videos that pop up and I'm like, oh my God, is this gonna live forever? Can this leave me alone now? So I can understand that.
Yeah. I have empathy for myself at that, like, and think, oh, that, that's kind of touching. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that yeah, it feels very homey.
One thing I appreciate about the kids at Degrassi Street is that because of the year jumps, like it's so Haida Makes a Movie to Cookie Goes to Hospital. You keep growing up, and all the kids on the show just keep growing up. And it's so cute to check in once a year with someone and see what they're going through or what their life is like or what they look like now and how they're transitioning into, grade 6 or something. So that's I think it's cool to have that kind of snapshot every year as we check into your life and we see what you're up to.
Oh, I
Very
hadn't thought
cool.
of it that way.
One of the fun things, I don't know if you actually know this, but the reason I got connected with Linda is because I was on her publicity team for the book, The Mother of All Degrassi. She needed someone who knew everything about the show, and I was ready to be there to do that.
Wow.
And in that, she had given me access to her archives of Degrassi, and she had included things like your first contract that you signed for Ida Makes a Movie. We had the prop letter of Ida Winner contest, and one thing I thought was so cute, a letter from your mom saying it was okay for you to travel to and from the filming location, and she's sure you would have a lot of fun. Did you get a chance to check those out in the email?
I did. Oh my God.
What did you think?
I remembered the contract. I remembered that I got paid $100 for that first
Incredible.
episode. I was pretty blown away by that letter from my mother where she's like, yeah, Zoe's 10 now, so she's fine to travel around the city because as a 10-year-old, I was actually like, it was a stressful thing to travel. Whatever, we don't need to get into my family psychology and psychodrama, but just hilarious to see also like such a different time in the city. Yeah, those are very.
Did you keep anything from your time on Degrassi?
Well, actually, I was scrambling right before we started this call because my mother has the yellow visor that I wear in Kids of Degrassi, and it, like, I swear it's been hanging in the same place in her house for ages, and I was trying to find it,
and
somehow it's not there. Anyway, so definitely still have that yellow visor. I think there are some like pins from like, or buttons that say like, I'm a human being.
That is so cute.
I think that would have been from Irene Moves In, maybe?
Yes, we're all human beings.
There you go.
So cute. Oh my God. Okay, that is cool. I am somewhat of a Degrassi collector, so finding out what people still have in their Degrassi collections really means a lot to me. That is so freaking cool. We had another Degrassi fan question because as you mentioned earlier, yes, Linda is a big part of Degrassi's history, but it was also co-created by Kit Hood, who was a director on the show. This question comes in from Degrassi CSI, and their main goal is to uncover everything they can about the original Degrassi series. So they were so stoked to see that you were here, but they want to know if you have any memories of what it was like to work with Kit Hood as a director when you were such a young kid.
I'm immediately like transported to the building they had at Queen and Carlaw, Playing with Time. Yeah. It was this really cool kind of house. I guess it had been a house and it was converted into their offices.
Yeah.
And then I know this is not a direct response to the question, but in the backyard was where we had the clubhouse that we filmed.
I did not know that. That's sick.
That's my memory. You'll obviously have to check it with somebody else, but yeah, so that like the clubhouse in Irene Moves In, as I recall, was in that backyard. I just remember I have really positive feelings when I think about Kit, like the very superficial, like whatever, that he was British. That doesn't really tell you anything about him as a person. I definitely remember his daughters being around the set and like them being like part of the posse of kids.
That's incredible.
It was nice. I got to reconnect with Georgia at the Walk of Fame. Yeah, it's hard. I feel in some ways like my memory was of Linda being much higher energy, and Kit being a little bit more like serious or Yeah, that's what I can recall at this moment.
That is so cool. I don't live in Toronto. I live in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. So whenever I go to Toronto, I always go to these Degrassi locations, and specifically 935 Queen Street. But I'm not sure if you know, but behind there was that laneway, and Kit Hood's daughter, Georgia, and some other people from Degrassi got that renamed the Kit Hood Lane, which I thought was so
Oh,
cool. I know, isn't that
that's so
sweet?
great. That's so great.
I love that. So kids at Degrassi Street, we grow up with the kids, right? So partway through the series, Ida and her friends kind of pass on the torch to the younger characters and we start hearing their stories. We had a lot of fans wonder, is this something that was just kind of a natural progression? You know, the kids were growing up, or was it more so that you were growing up and you wanted to move on from the show?
Yeah, I don't know for sure. I mean, I feel like when I go back and look at myself in the like at 11, 12, 13, like we're clearly it's a very different kind of feeling and a very different kind of set of stories and issues. I mean, I feel like when I go back also, I start to see that I became kind of more self-conscious and that maybe made acting more difficult in some ways. Like, whereas, you know, in the initial ones, I was like just being a kid.
Yeah.
As I got older, I was sort of more affected. So I don't know. I think my feeling is that was more of a them decision than an us thing. Although it may very well have been that some of the longtime cast members were starting to like get busy with other stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. And even when you watch the show, there is that kind of natural progression of you guys are all like in grade 6 now, and now we're back. It kind of feels like Linda and Kit kind of figured out what they wanted to do. They used you guys kind of as an experiment. And then we're like, okay, now we feel like we know what we're doing. Let's make some episodes together. I totally can see that. And of course, many kids your age grew up then watching Degrassi Junior High and Degrassi High. Did you ever end up watching that series when you were a kid?
I really didn't. And I don't know now why I didn't. It's so interesting. I think it was a bit young for me, right? And you know, when you are whatever, 14, 15, 16, you actually tend to be interested in things that are a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it just felt, yeah, like not where my interest was somehow.
No, it makes total sense. Degrassi, they always report that their demographics always skewed like a year or two younger, because I mean, when you're a kid, a year or two makes a huge difference. Like a ninth grader is crazy when you're in grade 7. So that makes sense. They always skew that the data is always lower. Well, I feel like I know the answer to this question, but this was from Jolene, who's from California. She said, I'm so excited to ask a question to the first Degrassi kid. And she wanted to know if there was ever a possibility that you might come back for Degrassi Junior High.
Well, hey, Jolene. Like, I don't think that was ever really discussed. Yeah, it was definitely not a thing that I remember being asked if I wanted. It wasn't like I turned them down. So I don't know the answer to why it didn't happen, but
that makes sense.
Nope.
Exactly. Especially because Degrassi wasn't necessarily like a structured show. It makes so much sense that things just like kind of happen. Oops, we have a TV show now. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on what might have happened to Ida if she ended up staying on the show?
I think that she would have probably, I mean, done things similar to me, like it just, I mean, whatever. Obviously, it's hard for me to separate who the character was from what I was like. I mean, I was pretty bossy. I was a pretty bossy person, and I think you see that in Ida's character. And I'm particularly thinking here about like Noel buys a suit and the way that Ida kind of strong arms Noel, and
is
a bit of a know-it-all. So I feel like let's just say that Ida would have gone on to found some kind of like precursor to a gay straight alliance.
Love that. That. That's my favorite answer. That's a good answer. I love that. I'm going to tell you my fan theory, because not often I get to tell Degrassi actors my fan theory. But I think that specifically if she had have gone on to Degrassi Junior High, there is a character on that show that I think would have become kind of like an Ida Zoe mix. Her name is Lucy. She's a film student on the show. So one of the things that she does for her friends is she brings a video. She gets sick and goes to the hospital. Sorry, her friend gets sick and goes to the hospital. And then so she doesn't miss out on her high school memories, she brings a camera and like records everybody and asks them questions. The Zit Remedy has a music video. She's the one who's there filming it. But then also for her class project, she makes a feminist horror film where the main character, Stacy Mistician, do you remember Stacy? She played Lisa.
Yep,
yes.
yep.
She was the main killer in that movie, and she specifically targeted men, and they had scenes like the man would be in the shower, like they kind of put the whole spin on it. So I think if Ida had gone on to Degrassi Junior High, she would have been that Lucy character. I do think.
Oh my God, I love that. I think you're totally right, because I think Ida like took herself very seriously as a filmmaker and an artist. And I think Ida totally would have been like documenting everything and
100%.
Yeah.
I love that. Also, just a fun fact to share. In season 3 of Degrassi Junior High, they have a principal who does voiceovers on the announcements, who is John Bertram, the guy from No Buys a Suit and the writer on the show. But he specifically put in a line where he calls Ida Lucas to the principal's office. So you do still exist in the world of Degrassi Junior High.
And you see, I'm being called to the principal's office because I'm stirring some kind of trouble up.
I love that. She was a baddie. I love that. Yeah. Then, of course, the Degrassi doesn't end. They go on with Degrassi, The Next Generation, which was on the air for 14 years. And then they had Degrassi Next Class for 4 more years after that. Did you ever come in contact with the show Degrassi, The Next Generation in any way?
I feel like just like in passing, and like, I don't know. I think for me, Kids of Degrassi felt like such a separate little bubble that I never really... I didn't, I mean, obviously I realized there's some continuity there, but I didn't necessarily feel it. I did definitely remember watching 90210 in its like early years and like hearing the rumor that they'd based it on Degrassi in some way and like feeling very proud about like whatever, not Kids of Degrassi, but whatever, Degrassi High and like feeling proud about that. Yeah, so that's one moment of coming into contact.
That is cool. You do get to feel proud and take credit, because if we did not get the I call it the stepping stones into Degrassi Junior High, because you can watch them learn literally how to make a TV show, and if you weren't there to help them learn, we never would have got Degrassi Junior High. So you're the first Degrassi kid. You get to take that credit. Our next question comes from Amber from New Jersey. It's a hypothetical, because there's always rumors that Degrassi is going to come back with a reboot. And she wants to know, if Linda called you and said, hey, we want Ida Lucas to appear in this scene, would you do it?
Oh my God. I would definitely consider it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let Linda know.
I mean, I don't know that I can bring it in front of a camera, but I probably wouldn't say no.
That would be, I would be very excited about that. Well, I'll keep that in mind. If they ever announce a reboot, I'll say, just so you know, Zoe Newman has signed up. James from South Carolina has a question, because they have a podcast all about Degrassi books. They're reading through all of the Degrassi books. And of course, the first book that they had to read was Ida Makes a Movie, which the show is based off of. They want to know, did you ever read this book? Did you ever know about this book? What is your emotional connection to this book right here?
I remember that book, James. I totally do. Although I did get it wrong recently. I think when you and I were talking a little while ago, I remembered that they were cats, but they're actually, I thought they were badgers, but they're actually cats, one way or the other. So I think I confused the book in my head with Bread and Jam for Francis. Do you know those? There's like a whole series by like Russell and Lillian Hoban. Anyway, those characters are badgers in those books. So cute. I totally remember reading that, seeing that book or reading it, and like I couldn't really conceptualize how that book could possibly become a script with humans, and it just seems so random in a way. Like, do you know why or how that book was the basis?
This is what I was made for. Yes. Let me tell the original Degrassi Kid the history of why this book was the book. So, okay, I'll try to keep it short too, because I am a rambler. But basically, long story short, Linda was a school teacher, and she had a best friend named Bruce Mackey, who lived at 98 Degrassi Street. Yes. He was a librarian, and he ordered every book he could with the word movie or film in it, because he wanted to help Linda make her movies. And then this book came in, and Bruce went, oh my God, well, that's not going to help you. It's a kid's book. And Linda went, no, this is my movie. So then this book became her official Ida Makes a Movie. So I have to show off my collection a little bit, because I got Linda to sign it. So she wrote, Linda also makes a movie. Thanks for being a fan. And they are cats, which I don't think I read this when I was with you, but when you signed it, you put, "Dear Jocelyn, you are one cool cat. Love, Zoe." I freaked out when I got home and read that. Like, oh, the layers to that, I mean, made me feel so much joy. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm so glad that I know that bit of backstory now.
Yeah, isn't that fun? That's also the condensed version. I could go on forever, but listen to the Degrassi Kid podcast and you'll find
All
out.
right, okay.
Also, one of the things about Degrassi and its history is it's based on a real street. You guys actually filmed on Degrassi Street.
Yeah.
And I know it's in Toronto. You live around Toronto. Do you ever like pass by it? Does it ever evoke memories? What kind of feelings do you have when you go by Degrassi Street, if you do?
I lived not that far from it for a while when we lived in the Bain Co-op, and then we moved kind of to farther west. And so I feel like for a long time I just didn't go by it, and it almost felt like a fictional street more so than an actual place. Then there were some years where I would go sometimes to Bonjour Brioche, that's down at the corner of Degrassi and Queen. Really good brunch spot if you don't know it.
I gotta go. Now I gotta go.
Yeah. And then in the last few years, I've gone by a couple of times. My partner, Dinah, is like so sweetly obsessed with Kids of Degrassi Street. And at the time that we got together, she was living near Degrassi. And so she kind of put it back on my radar in some ways. But I was actually on it recently. We were at a friend's house for dinner and they lived on Degrassi. And so I saw the park there, the Bruce Mackey Park.
Oh, that's incredible. You have friends that live on Degrassi Street? That is iconic. This is my favorite. I'm learning more Degrassi lore that now. This is the kind of stuff that now I'm going to tell everybody else. I'm like, guess what? That's so cool.
And actually there was a little, my partner also really loves to read real estate ads just for the fun of it. And there was like a little house on Degrassi that went up for sale, and it was like clearly hadn't been like flipped and whatever. So it was like actually relatively affordable. And we were like, oh, clearly we need to buy this place and open a little Degrassi museum.
Okay, I know it's a joke, but if you ever do it, let me know. I can help.
Oh, I will let you know, Jocelyn.
Oh, knowing that Degrassi still like pops up in your life feels very, very cool to know. Because I mean, like, it was so long ago. I know that you're not on social media like I'm Ida Lucas, but it's just feels so distant, and it's like cool to know that it still touches you in some kind of way. That's very, very cool.
Nice.
Now we're going to transition into talking about all these events that you experienced recently. And one of them was, well, first we'll talk about Nancy Lamb, because Nancy Lamb used you were like a surprise at my 30th birthday party, which was crazy. But before that, how did you run back into Nancy? Had you guys stayed in touch? Did you just like run into each other? What's the story there?
So I just happened to find an email that had like gone into my spam folder from Nancy. And it was, I think she wrote it during like the deep pandemic when people were just like doing all kinds of stuff that they hadn't had time for in a while.
Yeah.
And so she'd sent me an email, I don't know, like 2021, 2022, maybe, just like saying hi, reconnecting, and also to talk about her novel. Like I think she was also like reaching out to a lot of people in different parts of her life to tell them about this novel that she'd just written. I got in touch and said like, hi, this is so amazing. Wow, lovely. And we like chatted a tiny bit, but then I was part of a sponsorship group, like to sponsor a refugee to Canada. And we really needed some legal advice. And I saw that she was doing immigration law. And so then I was like, hey, Nancy, by any chance, could you help me with this thing? And she referred me to somebody and was super helpful. And then she told me about her book launch, and I went to that. And then we went out for dinner, and
Wow. Okay, I love that. Then what happened after that on my side is, so I was Linda Schuyler's publicist, so I was running some of her social medias. So I get this tag that says from Nancy Lamb. She says, "Look, it's me and Ida. We're like reconnecting." And I really feel like anyone else who maybe got that tag probably would have been like, "Oh, I wonder who that is." My world stopped. I was like, what? They're both hanging out right now. They both just tagged us. So I emailed Nancy immediately. I was like, could we ever talk about this? Could you come on my podcast? Of course, Nancy's the nicest person ever. She came and talked about her book. She sent me a free signed copy. She's done a whole bunch of little things to help me in the Degrassi world. So then when it came time for my birthday, she was one of the people I'd most recently talked to her, and I reached out to her and I was like, would you like to come? Like, that would be pretty cool. And she was like, yes, of course. And then You walk into the room. How did it feel for you on your end? I'll tell my story in a minute, but how did it feel for you to enter this room filled with all this? There's Degrassi people, Linda's there, there's Degrassi fans. What was that experience like for you?
I mean, so first of all, I owe you an apology because after you and Nancy reconnected, you also got in touch with me and do this podcast thing. And I don't know what the particular chaos of my life at the time was that I like didn't get back to you or didn't like follow through. Anyway, so then I was like, okay, I messed that up. Here I can show up in this way.
I'm glad you did.
But I feel like I was, Nancy was like, no, you should come. And you should come as a surprise. And I was like, Nancy, are you sure? Because that seems like a really random thing to do. And also, I don't usually just show up unannounced at parties. And but Nancy was also like, no, it'll be this great surprise. And I was also a bit skeptical about that it would actually land the way that it did. I hadn't seen Linda in years and years. I've obviously followed her path in various ways, but we hadn't been in touch. So it was also just this very I felt very curious and a little bit shy, and it was so lovely though. It was such a lovely party.
That is one of my core memories of life. Because first of all, basically how this all happened is I had thrown myself a birthday party in Toronto, and I told all my online friends, if you come to Toronto, I'm going to take you everywhere. I'll take you to Degrassi High. I'll take you to Degrassi Street. We'll go to like Bruce Mackey, Ida's house. We'll do all this stuff. And then Linda had heard about it and emailed me, and she said, well, how about I throw your birthday party at my house? That was already insane to me. And then all these Degrassi people kept showing up. And I remember sitting in the circle, and I turned my head, and it's Zoe fucking Newman has just walked into my birthday party. And I specifically remember there was a few people who had come in, and I was very excited to see them. I specifically remember stopping everybody to be like, you don't understand what's happening right now. Like, you don't understand who has just walked in this room. And it was so cool. Like, easily a high life memory for me.
Oh my God.
Cool.
Well, so glad I could be there.
It was great. So it landed. It was a great surprise. I think Nancy definitely probably also, she met me, so she understood that this is huge. This is huge to me. What was it like for you to reconnect with like Linda Schuyler after all these years?
It was so nice. And she was so instantly familiar. Like she was so instantly Linda. And yeah, I mean, also so like wonderful to see her place that has all kinds of like all of the awards and tributes from the years, and just seems like she's made such a lovely life for herself. I feel like this isn't the question that you asked me, but I also just want to say that reconnecting with Nancy was a thing I really appreciated getting to do, because I have carried some guilt about how mean Ida was to Nancy, and like, in ways that were clearly like racist. And so it felt really important to me to like be able to sit down with Nancy as an adult and be like, I'm so sorry. That was not like, just to like make sure that it wasn't a thing that she had, I don't know, carried. And she was like, oh no, it's totally fine. Those were our characters. This was not
That's so sweet of you to do that. Yeah, because especially as kids, it could be hard to differentiate. Like, is this person really yelling at me, or is it in the script? I even think now I couldn't be an actor, because if someone screamed at me, it doesn't matter if it's fake or not. Like, I'm going to cry. It's going to be scary. Yeah. So that's so sweet that you guys had that moment of reconnection.
I do appreciate though, like going, like when I did go back subsequently and see Irene moves in, I also appreciated that Irene gives it back pretty good. Like she's a pretty good like match for Ida.
I thought that was impactful, that the third episode of Degrassi, they're handling topics like racism. Like, what if someone who looks different than you moves in on the street? Yeah. And I agree. She held her own against Ida and got back at her. So I love that. Then, of course, there's a few more things that happened. You went to Canada's Walk of Fame, and they had 25 cast members who were involved in every different aspect of the show up on stage. How did it feel for you to go from someone who was maybe so disconnected from Degrassi to now being up on stage representing the early parts of the show?
It felt totally surreal. And I think it also ends up showing in a hilarious way how not in that world and in the industry I am. Because we had our moment on the red carpet, and it's like a very, it's a very set designated thing where you're hanging around and then you're told, okay, it's your moment. You got to get on the red carpet and smile, 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 whatever. We had that moment. And then when Linda was up on stage receiving the honor, they called us up to come and stand behind. And Linda so sweetly had postcards made, both of the red carpet and of us all on the stage behind them. In neither photo can you see me, because and actually Linda made fun of me about this subsequently, because I'm so and she said, clearly you haven't had the like media training or whatever to know that if you can't see the camera can't see you. So like in one of them, my head is turned away. In the other one, I'm like hidden behind somebody else. And so there's like, yeah, my lack of like industry chops. And also I was just kind of when we were up on stage, I was just like drinking in the moment, like just that wild moment of like seeing the audience.
Wow, that is so
I
cool.
wasn't looking for the camera.
That's so funny. I have those postcards, so now I have to dig them out and look at them again and see if I can find you. That's hilarious. I had the opposite option. So like I wasn't technically on Degrassi. Well, actually, I was an extra on one episode of Degrassi, and I tell everybody about it. So this is my chance to tell you. I was an extra on one episode of Degrassi, but I wasn't really in it. So like, yes, I was with the Degrassi team, but there was sometimes that they wanted photos of just the cast because it goes viral online and stuff. I got in there and I was dead center, looked at the camera, got my angle, got my light. Like I was in those photos. Wasn't supposed to be, but I was in those photos. So thank you for letting me have the spotlight.
I'm gonna call you the next time I need to know how to deal with something like that.
I got you. Then, of course, I'm sure maybe these memories even blend together. But then there was another party. There was a Walk of Fame / Christmas party. This time you came with your partner. There was a lot more Degrassi people there. Do you have any standout memories from there? Did you run into anybody you didn't expect to run into? Anything like that?
Billy, you know what? Actually, I saw him both at the red carpet and at the party.
Yes. Oh, Billy's his character named Tyson.
Yes, Tyson. Totally. That was so lovely. He was so lovely to reconnect with. And just like, that weird experience of like seeing somebody's childhood face in their adult self and body. That was really touching. That's whatever. That's the only thing I'm remembering now. It was a very glamorous party though. Very glamorous with like somebody playing the grand piano and a fabulous Christmas tree that was decorated with stuffed animals for children to take home, and very, very much a different world.
I love that. I have one standout memory. This might reveal that maybe I was creeping a little bit, but I have a memory because because I worked with Linda, I had been at her house a few times, and they have a cat named Natasha, and Natasha does not come out for anybody. And then I remember I was walking by the hallway and I looked down, and Natasha and you were on the floor together, and you had played a cat. Ida was a cat, and I just like, this is so Degrassi. I loved it so much. So it was only a brief moment, but I was like, that is so cute. I love that.
Natasha is a very glamorous cat. I did not know that it was an exception for her to.
Yes, I had been there probably a dozen times and she did not come out for me. I also remember I didn't realize that Natasha was a cat, so they kept saying like, "Oh, Natasha's like hiding, and Natasha won't come out." And I'm like, "Who's this Natasha girl that's just like locked away in a room somewhere?" And then I realized she was a cat, and that took me several days to learn. So she loved you. We're going to talk a little bit now about the impact of Degrassi. Then I'm going to hit you with like 2 or 3 more fan questions, and then I'm going to quiz you a little bit on trivia, and then we'll wrap up. Okay? Sound good? All right. I want to talk a little bit about how you feel about like representation in the media, because one of the reasons I love Degrassi is it's because it's the show that helped me come out of the closet. And then it also shaped my worldview about diversity and acceptance. I really feel like Degrassi does a good job at kind of showing how good people do bad things or things in headlines, and how do you humanize that? I'm wondering if there's a time that you've ever personally felt represented by media similarly to how I felt represented by Degrassi.
Oh my God. Well, I feel like my immediate thing is to like put on my academic hat in a way, because I have taught about media and like done sort of critical cultural studies stuff where, there's like a lot of work on how for sure having visibility in the media is like an important part of making social change. But the tendency is for like those representations to be like good images, and I'm making quotation marks around good, because like, that's been like a response. So like for, let's say, queer folks, where there's been either like total silence, like an absence of images, or images that are like fairly negative, and like, like in the like 60s and 70s, if queer people appeared, they tended to be like either the butt of the joke or like some kind of a psycho killer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then the response to that is to like have only like shiny, happy images of queer people.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's like a stage in some ways, right? So there was Ellen coming out, and then it's like people who are like as close to the mainstream as possible, like skinny white cis women
Yep.
become the like face of of lesbians. And really what you need are like way more complex and multifaceted characters. I don't know. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's my academic answer.
No, I love that. Well, the next question I was going to have is, do you think there's a story not being told on television that you need to start seeing? And that sounds like that would also be your answer, having more diversity and diverse representation of all kinds of stories, not just here's a pretty perfect person in a pretty perfect world who is accepted by everybody.
Yeah.
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 I love that. That's a great answer. I want to talk a little bit more about specifically Degrassi and its roots in queerness, because again, I'm an adult who's gone back and reflected on the show and the history of it. And you were a kid that was there when it happened. Maybe don't even know about the full scope of it. But were you familiar? Did you ever meet Bruce Mackey, or do you even know who Bruce Mackey really is?
I do remember Bruce Mackey. Like I don't like just like him being around and knowing that it was his house.
Mm.
Yeah, he was like just a very friendly and appealing person. I mean, I don't know whether I knew at the time that he was gay or like I sort of, you have some sort of understanding of a person or a sense. But like, yeah, I feel now like so that is a really important dimension of it for me.
Yeah, yeah. It's huge for me because I'm just kind of tell you some Degrassi things and hear kind of your
Please.
thoughts as someone who's on the show. But Degrassi's the show that helped me come out of the closet. It felt like I was going to high school and then I was coming home and watching my coming out story happen on screen. And then I started to study Degrassi. I learned about Linda, I learned about the history, and that's when I had learned that Bruce was a school teacher who he's passed away now, but Linda had referred to him as a public school teacher by day and a private gay man by night because he couldn't, as you're aware, you couldn't be openly queer in the 70s, especially if you worked around children. He was basically just begging for his job to get canceled if he couldn't do that. So Linda has really harbored with her this sense that it made such an impact on her to watch someone that she loved so much not be able to be themselves, that she wanted to tell those stories on Degrassi. So, of course, they couldn't in the kids of Degrassi Street, just no way, but made a huge impact on me to go to Bruce's house and see the history. That's where I got to tell Linda my coming out story. We visited Degrassi Street together and I stood outside of his house and told her. So that was huge. But I just wanted to tell you about some times that Degrassi did cover queerness on Degrassi. For example, in Degrassi Junior High, she couldn't tell a story about a teenager still. So instead, there was a rumor about a teacher who was being gay. And the episode could not confirm or deny if she was gay, but it was actually ended up being banned in several countries across the world just because it referenced that someone might be a homosexual.
Mm.
Then later in Degrassi High, they finally did tell it about a student, but it wasn't a student at Degrassi. It was a student's older brother who was in college, that classic thing where they come in for one episode to tell a story and then they never exist again. So kind of more of a reaction to what the network would allow her to do, but that was her push to do it. And then in 2003, in Degrassi The Next Generation, the world's, feeling a little bit better about gay people. And she creates a character named Marco, who she calls her love letter to Bruce Mackey, because Marco got 5 years of a story of coming out to his friends, his family, being more than just the gay kid, having all these diverse aspects of his life. And his story ends with him being a proud gay man and going off to university. And I'm just curious, as a queer person who's on Degrassi, you're on the start. What's your thought about all this queer history that's rooted in Degrassi?
I mean, I feel a little bit of a lump in my throat hearing all those details and about, the way that Linda was kind of motivated or inspired and the love letter to Bruce. I mean, the truth is that there's like so much of a queer subtext or backstory to so much media and so much creativity and art. I feel like in the same way that a lot of the things that are mainstream culture have actually been stolen from Black people and Black culture.
Yep.
Like, I think that a lot of the like fabulousness and creativity of queer people has been like kind of mined.
Yeah.
I'm not at all saying that that's what was the case in Degrassi, because it actually feels like it's quite the opposite, where Linda felt like she wanted to give something back. or like find ways. I mean, that thing you're describing about like having to like do the first episode where it's like a rumor about a teacher, right? Like that is so much how often queer representation or like trans representation as well appears, is in these like kind of coded ways or subtle ways, and then you have to like kind of prove to the network or whatever that there's an audience or that people aren't going to freak out. So it's really important for me to know. I really appreciate knowing that.
Good. Yeah, I feel a really strong connection to it because I remember being so, where I grew up, it wasn't that no one told me it wasn't okay to be gay. It's that no one told me that it was, or even what it was. So I had all of these confusing feelings that no one was talking about. And then here was Degrassi, not only saying that it was okay in a safe space, but showing that true, like, what is it like to go to school when everyone has a boyfriend and you don't, and you can't figure it out, or you get really upset when your best friend is hanging out with her boyfriend all the time. Like, what are those confusing feelings and what do they actually mean? So learning that history, it affected me so profoundly to know how much their intention there was to Linda Schuyler wanting to reach kids like me and share those stories online. So that was huge.
Well, and I think it's actually does such a disservice to kids and young people to not like give them information and like make space for them to ask questions and like respond in a genuine and like age appropriate or whatever way. And I think that is so much what Degrassi does, is it's like treating young people as people.
Exactly.
Right? And like able to like grapple with complicated things.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I love studying it now, because once I had made that connection, that I learned that Linda like had this intention to help kids like me and this impactful story about Bruce. That is why I'm so passionately digging into the history of the show, because I've also helped uncover, and like for example, Nancy played the very first Asian character on Degrassi. And I found Degrassi fans who were like, I can't believe I'm watching someone like me be on TV and tell these stories. So I feel like I'm really making an impact on my Degrassi fan community to connect them to these people who have such a close connection to this thing that we love, that was our safe space when maybe we didn't have those safe spaces anywhere else in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that this isn't a direct connection, but I know this is just a coincidence. But I have been doing research on you for a long time. I'm very aware of who you are. But a while ago, you had written an article called "The Spectacle of Public Sexuality, Media of State Surveillance of Gay Men in Toronto in the 1970s." And just by a pure coincidence, that article really hits on Bruce Mackey's life, who shared a house with Ida. And in Linda's book, she talks a lot about how while she was making this kid-friendly show, she was living with, or working with her friend who was experiencing gay bashing, who was like just meters away from murders that were happening to gay men, and really lived the reality of this kind of article. I'm curious for you, why was that a topic that was important for you to explore?
So that article actually came out of my PhD dissertation. It was like one of the chapters of it where like I was really interested in public space and how like difference is either helped along by having access to public space, or how difference is like suppressed. And I was interested particularly in that when it comes to like racialization and whiteness, as well as like LGBTQ activism and stuff like that. I mean, I think that so when I was doing research and whatever, studying as a grad student, I got super interested in this very sensationalized case of a murder of a young boy in 1977. And people from Toronto, including my buddy Mike, might remember that. So there was this young boy named Emmanuel, and I'm never sure if it's Jacques or Jakes. Anyway, he was murdered at Yonge and Dundas, and it was pinned on some men who were said to have, sexually interfered with him. It like, and then it got said to be like evidence of like the dangers of gay men more broadly. And like, it was very much a kind of manufactured panic and crisis that was used to do like a big cleanup of Yonge Street. So yeah, that was just like a place where a lot of my interests came together. But I think also, and maybe this goes back to that letter from my mother that we talked about before, I used to go to the Eaton Center. Yeah. When I was like that age, like also living in the Bain Co-op. There was actually a streetcar that goes right from there to the Eaton Center. And that's partly because the Bain Co-op was built as workers' housing for people who worked at the Eaton Center, or what was
Oh,
then
wow.
Eaton's. Anyway, so like I would go, I like hung out at Yonge and Dundas by myself. And so I think I was just really interested in sort of revisiting that time and that space, like late 70s. I mean, it would have been a really like that was the late 70s was a time when there was sort of starting to be more of a visible gay community around Church Street. I mean, you might also know that like 1981 is when there was like this, there had been lots of raids of bathhouses in and around like Yonge and Wellesley. And 1981 is when the gay community in Toronto stood up and said, that's it. Like, you know, so it was sort of our Stonewall.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I know that's not directly connected to Degrassi, but I have a lot of passion in learning what was happening around the show that was being made. And I know that Bruce was experiencing that. And then indirectly through his lens, Linda was kind of being affected by it and being shocked by this world that she was being introduced to. And I know maybe not in the Kids of Degrassi Street era, but in the junior high and later, they really took those headlines and put them like, what if they happened in a high school? What if they happened to someone you know? What if they happened to someone you care about? And really made those conversation starters. So I love learning, especially queer history. It's always just great to learn your queer history, but what was happening around the time that the show was being made is something that just adds to my understanding of why the show was so important at the time. So I appreciate that. I do have some more Degrassi fan questions for you, and then we'll test your knowledge of trivia. I know, obviously not directly connected again, but Shane from Australia had a question. Huge Kids of Degrassi Street fan. Again, one of those people, every time he reaches out to me, it's about the Kids of Degrassi Street, so freaked out that I posted this on my Instagram. But he said, was Degrassi something that influenced or ever inspired your activism or research interests? Or is Degrassi just one of the many aspects of a time, place, and community in which activism and education are valued? Or, of course, none of the above.
What an amazing question. I feel like for me, it sort of felt like it was my time on Degrassi was a thing like I put away in a box or a drawer and kind of closed. And honestly, I never imagined that anybody later on in my life would care about it, or that like there would be any like through line of any sort. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I can necessarily say right off the bat, or hi Shane, by the way. I don't know that I can necessarily say that I see a connection. I feel like the connection I want to make is having been part of this thing that really was about community and about like kids who were genuinely from the neighborhood that was being portrayed, and just like having this sense of a possible space outside of like everything being commercialized and everything being individualistic. And yeah, that does feel like maybe Shane's right. Maybe there's a connection.
I love that. That perfectly transitions into our question from Megan, who says, now that Degrassi is a franchise known around the world with over 500 episodes, over 40 years on television, how do you feel and reflect on being there for the beginning of it as the true original Degrassi Kid?
Wow. Hey, Megan. It feels like this kind of sweet little thing, like in the sense that it really does feel like somebody else who did that. I feel really lucky that it's meant so much to people, like whether it's like me specifically having meant so much to people or just Degrassi generally. Like I feel very, very lucky and touched to have been part of that. But I also am like very aware of how many other people have built this thing and like made it into a thing that is like clearly so important. And that just to go back for a second to your birthday party, Jocelyn, like that was so striking, like the people you brought together, right? And the ways that like that Linda and Kit but like maybe Linda in a more ongoing way, like really worked to create community and then have like fostered people like you who want to do that alongside. So yeah, that feels pretty amazing and lovely, and I feel lucky to have been like one little part of it.
I love that. I know you keep saying you're a little part of it, and I definitely agree. Like, there's a lot of people in the moving parts, but being the first is huge. Like, every time we start watching the show again, you're the first face that we see, you're the first story that we get, and seeing the childlike innocence in that episode and watching what Degrassi grew up to be, huge impact, huge impact. I mean, they haven't made a new Degrassi episode in 8 years, and there are still people who passionately love this show. So being at the beginning is a huge impact.
Wow.
Shannon from Ohio wants to know, in your own words, what impact has Degrassi made on your life?
Well, hey, Shannon, it was definitely a big impact when I was young. And, this goes back partly to like being this kid and living in a co-op with hippie parents who were like not so much about the like consumer life. And I was like very interested in it. So I'll just tell you that I saved up my earnings from the first bunch of episodes to buy my family a dishwasher and a set of dishes. This was like what mattered the most to me was like having, I mean, I think it was partly also that I was starting to get to an age where I was expected to do chores around the house. And so buying a dishwasher was like a way out of that. So that was a really important early impact for sure.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think beyond that, like in my present day, it's like this hilarious thing that because of the nature of what people do where we Google each other or whatever, I don't advertise to people that I was in the Kids of Degrassi Street, or I don't tend to shake hands and say, hi, my name's Zoe. And yes, I was Ida T. Lucas. So often people will find out later, or like people will find out and then not, and like it takes them a while to tell me that they know. So it's like this hilarious thing that the people do get quite excited about.
I love that.
Yeah,
that is so cool. I love it. And also, I would say very much an Ida T. Lucas move, because when she needed to get a camera, she went into the attic, she got her brother's stuff, her mom's up, she was selling it. She didn't care who it was. She was like, I'm going to get this money for this camera. So I think that's very Ida Lucas of you. I love that. Okay, very final, kind of very similar to what we've already asked you 100 times, but I'm curious now as our final question, when you hear the word Degrassi, how does it make you feel? And has that changed after recently reconnecting with the show?
Yeah, I think, as I say, like I had this sense for a long time of it being this thing from my past that was like, this was my past and nobody was going to be particularly interested in it, and that it didn't have a lot of relationship to my present day. And so I think that it was meaningful to get to like be part of a larger gathering, and really meaningful to meet you and like hear from you about the kind of you and other people you brought together about the kind of ongoing importance of the show, and like all that stuff you talked about, like how people really need to see themselves and have a chance to like get some affirmation and recognition. So yeah, I am probably not going to take the credit that you keep trying to give me, but I'm happy to like be part of the family, I guess. And so yeah, so Degrassi could evoke that if I hear it.
I love that. I do know, briefly I had talked to Linda a little bit during Canada's Walk of Fame, and particularly her party afterwards. And she had told me like for many years of her life, she's always talked about how she's like the room that she's in represents all the different eras of the show, but never has she like really had the first Degrassi Kid on the show to the graduated ones most recently. So you completed that whole, timeline of her entire career being in one room. So I know that meant a lot to her. So that was very cool. I know I've given you your praises a million times, but I just one last time I have to say thank you. This is such a dream come true that I didn't even dream this could happen. And you just gave me like almost an hour and a half of your time to talk about my favorite thing in the world. I appreciate that.
Well, you're a dream to talk to, Jocelyn.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. You made my dreams come true. I'm going to end the call.
Welcome.
Thank you, Zoe.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Degrassi Kid podcast. And thank you so much to Zoe Newman for being a guest. This has truly been a dream come true. If you'd like to see some Degrassi trivia with Zoe Newman and see how much she remembers about playing Ida Lucas on Degrassi, you can find that bonus video on patreon.com/DegrassiKid. But for now, let's say a special thank you to our Patreon subscribers. We're sending our first thank you to Mike for sponsoring this episode of the Degrassi Kid podcast, Evie Piscini for being our amazing editor, and Jolene, Amber, Angelica, Nicholas, Sarah J, and Shannon for being standout members on the Degrassi Kid Patreon, and Alyssa, Angie, Alana, Becca, Brittany, Katrina, Christine, Chantel, Chrissy, Christopher, Daniela, Darcy, Dave, Degrassi CSI, Emily, Eugene, Gina, Jackie, Jamie, Jess, Joe, Joey, Kat, Catherine, Courtney, Casey, Kennedy, Kristen, Crystal, Kylia, Lindsay, Lizzie, Lizzie Games, Megan, Mackenzie, Mina, Nessa, Rachel, Racine, Randy, Rebecca, Renee, Sawyer, Sam, Sarah, Shane, Stephanie, Sierra, Sanita, Taylor, Tierney, Zach, and Nixon from the Degrassi Generations Facebook page. I recommend that you join. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode and all of your support in making this possible. And we'll see you next time for the next episode of the Degrassi Kid podcast. Bye.